In the heart of America, she was fighting on your eyeball.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. This story hits near and dear to my heart because of violence in Washington, D.C. and their idiotic defund the police suicidal policies. My family nearly died. My home was burned to the ground. Firefighters had to rescue my child, my infant, out of her nursery, and we fled the city. People were murdered in my front yard. I still have the Ring camera footage, and no police officers ever investigated these murders. That's a matter of fact. They never asked for the footage. They never even tried to find the person who burnt my house to the ground. That's Washington, D.C., your nation's capital. That is a failed state. That is a failed city. And it's high time that D.C. is refederalized. The federal government should run D.C. D.C. should not be its own independent self-rule district. It is a teeny little, it's like the size of a county. It's smaller than a county where you live or where I grew up. It was never designed to be a state. It was never designed to be anything other than a seat for the capital and federal government. And that is what it was for 100+ years before everyone decided to go woke. And it's been a nightmare. It's been an absolute and total hellscape for people to live in. And a DOGE staffer was nearly murdered trying to save people yesterday. Get a load of this. Here's from President Trump on Truth Social. Crime in D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths, quotes, youths, Donald Trump is going in, and gang members, some 14, 15, and 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, and maiming and shooting innocent citizens at the same time, knowing that they will almost immediately be released. That's exactly right. They have restorative justice policies in Washington, D.C. And I knew this. I was in the neighborhoods right around the Capitol. I mean, I wasn't like out in the true hood. I was like on Capitol Hill where I lived, and there were just roving gangs. It was like a failed state. It was like living in Somalia or South Sudan or South Africa or whatever. Like it was like a failed state. There were just roaming gangs that operated with impunity, that would mug people and would extort people and would attack myself, my wife, my children in the street. They were racialized attacks. They were always yelling epithets, like racist epithets at us as we walked by constantly. I have it on video. It's all on my Ring camera. I've released it before. I'll be happy to release it again. This is the state of Washington, D.C. Go into the wrong neighborhood and die in your own nation's capital. It is a failed state. The place needs to be bulldozed. Many of the neighborhoods need to simply be bulldozed, and many of the people in those neighborhoods need to finally be charged with the crimes that they've committed, because this is the lawlessness in Washington, D.C. Look at what they've done. They nearly murdered a young man who was working for the Trump administration. They're not afraid of law enforcement because they know that nothing ever happens to them. It's going to happen now. The law in D.C. must be changed to prosecute minors as adults and lock them up for a long time, starting at the age of 14. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs. Washington, D.C. must be safe, clean, beautiful for all Americans, and importantly, for the world to see. That's exactly right. If D.C. doesn't get its act together quickly, we will have no choice but to take federal control of the city and run the city as it should be run, putting the criminals on notice that they're not going to get away with it anymore. Perhaps we should have been doing this a long time ago. That's exactly right. Then the incredible young man with so many others would not have had to go through the horrors of violent crime. As he continues, I'm going to exert my powers and federalize the city, make America great again. And he shares a photo of somebody you may have recognized, someone named Big Balls. Big Balls is the DOGE employee, and he was beaten after he attempted to defend a woman who was being assaulted and robbed by a group of men, young men. The violence in the city is out of control. Something needs to be done. Pray for this man. DOGE posting Big Balls and love. Big Balls is a hero. This is Big Balls. Look at this. A few days ago, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman at her car at night. A DOGE team member, Big Balls, saw that it was happening and ran to defend her and was severely beaten. Donald Trump taking this.
I have to say that somebody from DOGE was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in D.C. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, Big Balls is trending now on X, and the Metropolitan Police have arrested 2 of the individuals in the carjacking. However, I mean, if you think that this somehow extends or like stops at Trump employees and younger DOGE employees. No, there are multiple members of Congress who have been robbed, multiple members of Congress who have been carjacked. Henry Cuellar is a Democrat from Texas, and he was carjacked recently. He's a member of Congress with his congressional pin on. So this is the way. Give the big balls the Medal of Freedom, says Mike Lee. You can see here the AI of big balls getting his Medal of Freedom. Here's Elon Musk saying it is time to federalize Washington, D.C. I completely agree. Take back our capital. President Trump not messing around here. And it's time. We shouldn't have members of Congress. We shouldn't have foreign nationals. We should be able to walk the streets of our own capital city. We built this country. It is our inheritance to be able to walk safely and not have this happen to young men in the streets. Edward Corstantine, also known as Big Balls, is a great guy and a patriot. He was recently attacked by 8 black teenagers. DC police and political class allow this rampage through the city is totally unacceptable. Constantly, there were young men on motorcycles and ATVs ripping through the capital city. If Democrats in D.C. cannot protect their citizens, it's time to federalize D.C. This is absolutely awful for big balls. The crime rates, of course, in D.C. Look at the violent crime rates in D.C. The crime rates in D.C. out of control. It's been absolutely and totally horrifying. Now, some of the crime rates have gone down a little bit because Trump's gone back in charge, but D.C. isn't a big place. So to have 2,000, they underreport these numbers. So to have nearly 3,000 motor vehicle thefts from auto, theft and other 7,000, 3,000. Look at these numbers. Total property crime, 14,000. Look at all these cases of property crime. DC doesn't have that big of a population. DC is the size of a county. I'm not effing leaving. I think this is actually him. Okay, let's follow. Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Big Balls was on Fox News this morning. They were covering this. It's just chaos all throughout Washington, D.C. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. It's time. There's about 1% of the population that commits like 99% of the crimes. And so you simply need to do what they did in New York City back in the 90s. And you need to say, nope, this crime is not allowed. No broken windows policies around here. Take back our nation's capital. Here's Fox News reporting on Big Balls. Godspeed, Big Balls.
News, President Trump is threatening a federal takeover of D.C. after police say a former DOGE employee was brutally beaten in the nation's capital.
Truly unbelievable. Lucas Thomason joins us live in Washington. Lucas, these type of attacks have been happening for years now.
They sure have, Lawrence. Good morning also to Ainsley and Griff. For those eating breakfast, the image that we just showed you and we're about to show you again is tough to watch. The 19-year-old former DOGE staffer known as Big Balls was beaten by a violent mob of minors in the nation's capital in a popular part of town, according to police. A 15-year-old man and a 15-year-old woman were arrested and charged with unarmed carjacking. The attack prompted President Trump to post, "Crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, and 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, maiming, and shooting innocent citizens. The most recent victim was beaten mercilessly by local thugs." Trump warned if crime is not dealt with properly, he may be forced to take over.
Somebody from DOGE was very badly hurt last night. You saw that. A young man who was beat up by a bunch of thugs in D.C. And either they're going to straighten their act out in the terms of government and in terms of protection, or we're going to have to federalize and run it the way it's supposed to be run.
Now, this summer, Edward Corstantine, the former DOGE lieutenant known as Big Balls, spoke to our own Jesse Waters. Elon Musk reacting to the attack on his platform X, saying, quote, "A few days ago, a gang of about a dozen young men tried to assault a woman in her car at night in D.C. A DOGE team member saw what was happening, ran to defend her, and was severely beaten to the point of concussion. But he saved her. It is time to federalize D.C." Here's a look at those recent attacks this summer. Back in May, a House staffer was the victim of an armed carjacking in the Navy Yard next to Nats Park. In July last month, a congressional intern was murdered in a crossfire from a drive-by shooting. And now, Big Balls left bloodied after this attack. President Trump says he wants gang members over the age of 14 to be prosecuted as adults, guys.